Our next demonstration is sponsored by Dataserv and will be presented by Jamie Beginner and Tony Matera. At this time, I'd like to welcome our presenters and hand off the demonstration to Jamie and Tony. Welcome.
Thank you. My name is Jamie Bigner, and I'm the Director of Product here at Dataserv.
And I'm Tony Matera, the Senior Solutions Consultant here at Dataserv.
We want to thank you so much for joining us today. It's great that we can get together for demo days despite not being in person. In these times, AP automation has become more of a necessity than it has a nice to have. And Tony and I are really excited to share the Dataserv solution with you today. You can go to the next one, Tony. We're taking a closer look at Dataserv here before we jump into the demo. Dataserv is a software as a service global company that serves over 20,000 users. We offer AP and AR solutions through our single platform SaaS architecture. That means our clients see value very quickly by taking advantage of the best practices and financial controls that we have baked into our system. We also work with our clients to tailor their instance to specific business needs that they have over time, and we're working to optimize the results. We are proud of the partnerships that we create with our clients. In fact, of the clients that could be with us for over 10 years, 70% of them have chosen to do so. According to a survey conducted by Ardent Partners, these are the top 5 challenges in AP. AP automation addresses all of these areas. Dataserv is focusing on helping our clients drive down exceptions and costs while providing insights into specific processes and enabling continuous improvement. Tony's going to share how Dataserv helps our clients and the processes that we use.
Thanks, Jamie. Well, we'll speak to all of those challenges throughout the demonstration and in our presentation here. So what we have is just a high-level P2P diagram of the AP solution here at Dataserv. What I'm going to do is I'm going to walk you through this from the top left down to the bottom right. And what we have up here in the top left is our universal adapter. We call it that because it takes in paper invoices via PO box, even fax, as well as emails. And all of those files and images will go into our digital mailroom where we scan that information and capture specific pieces of invoice data using our SaaS OCR technology that we have improved upon over time. And in combination with the rules that we've set up with OCR, as well as the human validation that we incorporate within our digital mailroom process, we ensure that that invoice data is at least 99% accurate before it gets imported into the solution itself. And all of this is invisible to you, but it's important to note that we have a lot of best practices built into this, and we use a non-template-based approach. I think if we leave you with anything today, it's important to arm you with information to help you navigate the waters for whoever you choose to partner with, and keep a lookout for those template-based OCR products and what type of maintenance is required from you in that process. So using that smart AI capture technology, we're able to capture that information and put it into the solution for you in 23 to 24 hours on average, trying to drive that down to 12 in the next year or so. And then those invoices will follow a path in a non-PO workflow or a PO workflow path. The PO path will incorporate some matching if necessary, and that would require us to integrate with your ERP, and we can talk about that later. But on the non-PO side, if we have certain information that was captured from that invoice that we can leverage to automate the routing and processing, we can go ahead and do so as well before those invoices are coded, approved, either in the system or mobilely from your phone.
All right.
So after all of that, that'll go into your ERP and you'll be good to go.
Okay. So while Tony's going to hop into the system, I was going to talk just briefly about what he just explained. Unlike some other solutions out there, Dataserv does not require invoices to be in certain formats. And so it makes for an easy transition to automation. You can simply forward emails that are already coming to you as like in an AP email box, forward them to a Dataserv email address, and we would just ingest those invoices right away, push them through the process that Tony described in our digital mailroom, and we would capture all that invoice data and put it in the system where it is visible to you. And this is where we begin our demo. So what you would see, rather than a pile of emails in your inbox, is a dashboard, something like this. And there are a lot of parts and pieces that flow automatically. Some may not require AP to look at them. So our intent here is really to focus on the things that are exceptions or questions. And really, we're looking for building a exception-based process for your invoices. And so I think Tony's going to start with the non-PO side of the process first.
Yes, thanks, Jamie. We've got a lot to cover in a short period of time, so we're just going to move through this stuff kind of quickly. And like Mark said before, please ask questions along the way. What I was just showing a moment ago was that dashboard. Like Jamie said, we're trying to promote an exception-based process, and that's just a snapshot of where your invoices are. How your dashboard might look a little bit different compared to another client of ours. It just depends upon the role of the person logging in and the needs of that person as well. So it's important to understand how you're going to handle it, what your delegation of authority is. Where are your invoices being worked, and who are they being worked by? Sorry. Lost my Google Chrome a moment ago. There we go. And it's important to understand, who is going to, what every approver's roles is in the process and what their approval limits are. So understanding how certain people work invoices, who works certain invoices, and it's important that you can leverage that delegation of authority and that hierarchy for invoice processing and working those non-PO invoices. Right, the PO invoices are go through a requisition process up front. Downstream, we need to code those non-PO invoices in a solution where people can interact with it in order for those users to I guess, complete their step of the process to ultimately put those invoices in position for payment. And using our delegation of authority and approval matrix and taking advantage of initial routing, you get a best of both worlds feel for really what that role is in the process, right? You want something that has good gap controls, right? As well as we want to automate wherever we can. If we can leverage information that we capture from invoices for routing, then we want to take advantage of that routing as well as auto coding those invoices as well. So from here, if we understand how invoices can appear and what we're capturing from them to get them in front of people, we can do so here. So we have our Datatel invoices and True North Group invoices that are auto-routed to a lane. This can look different depending on your organization. We're talking about the vendor information at this point and what we captured and how we can get that in front of a lane here. So if we know those vendors on those invoices, it takes out the AP step in the process and it can go straight to Elaine here. So Elaine would receive an email notifying her of the of the invoice that has been auto-routed to her, and then she would click on a link from her email to log in, and
Hey, Tony.
and she would log in. Yes.
I was just going to add here that, you'll notice the dashboard looks a little different. Each user's dashboard is going to be showing what's relevant for their role. So Elaine here is the approver, and she's got a lot less things that need her attention than the AP department. Just wanted to point that out.
Yes. Yes. As you can see, like her dashboard is a lot less busy, right? So we can see those invoices that were auto-routed to her, and from here she knows that she has to code them and approve them. From here, we can click on one of these invoices, and we'll see that invoice image that was captured by our digital mailroom, and we'll also see over on the right-hand side, we have some invoice metadata. That's that header level invoice data. When we get your vendor master data, we can integrate your vendor numbers and payment terms and things like that, right? So we want to make sure that you're paying your invoices on time. When we integrate with your system, with the vendor master, we can pull in those payment terms and how that pertains to your vendor and calculate discount dates and due dates and things like that, right? We want to help you prioritize your day and put invoices in front of you so that you're aware of who is tasked with what at any given point in time. And then down here at the bottom, we have the coding form. So again, I logged in as someone who's going to be approving an invoice. Okay, and when I'm approving an invoice, these people don't have necessarily the best, the photographic memories that many people in AP have. And so it helps to bind the descriptions for the GL segments when integrating with our system in terms of the GL data. So that way, when we're working invoices, if people can search by those descriptions, and also we can incorporate security around this. It's important to apply security to make sure that you have those, like I said before, those financial controls that are put in place to allow those people in the field to succeed. We want to put them in the best position to succeed, and we can do so by incorporating those financial controls. And
what if somebody is out there saying, but we know the coding, can't you just apply the coding? Why does someone have to key it?
And someone doesn't always have to just key it, Jamie. You can apply previously coded invoices to the current invoice. So if you've coded this vendor's invoice in the past and it's typically the same, you can apply that moving forward as well. So that's one simple way of doing it. Also, if you have it in an Excel file, some of our clients find that this is helpful as well, just by copying from Excel and pasting into here.
And what if invoices are coded the same every time? Can we leverage default coding there?
Yes, absolutely. I'm glad you brought that up. We can absolutely leverage default coding. If we know something about an invoice off the bat, we can get that in front of the approver already coded and ready to go. So when that coder or when that approver logs into the system, they open up the invoice and it looks like this. It's already coded, and so the heavy lifting has already been done by automation, really.
Okay.
Thanks, Jamie. And then from here, you're approving your invoice or rejecting it, or however we want the workflow to go, depending on those wherever those steps might be. If you're rejecting this invoice, say it's going to the wrong approver, should route to Kramer. And I'm going to go ahead and reject this invoice, and it will no longer be in my queue. It'll be in AP's, and AP will then determine who it needs to go to next, as indicated from that note. When approving that invoice, it will follow that delegation of authority that we talked about earlier, and it will go through an approval hierarchy. So if that invoice exceeded $1,000, it'll route to the next person in that, like we said before, that approval hierarchy. So now I'm logged back in as as an AP manager, and I'm going to go to our Analytics tab. Okay. What we saw on the dashboard before was basically a snapshot of where we are, where invoices are in the processing cycle. Well, what is today like compared to yesterday, compared to last month, last year? how are we doing with our invoices, right? This is where we're incorporating more time. The element of time is important to understand where you are today and where you want to be. And what I'm looking at here is just a simple aging report. So I can see by location, how many invoices do I have that are outstanding and how old are they? Because I need to keep these things, I need to keep the processing going for these, right? If we need to establish escalation rules or update the escalation rules, we can do so. And if we need to zero in on a certain location, say this east location, we can see how the data all changes there. So I just want to touch on briefly on analytics. There's tons of reports out here. We could spend the rest of the day talking about them. But just know that what we're trying to do is put the tools in front of you to help identify where those gaps exist within your processes and ensure that we can keep those moving forward. And we want to meet with you regularly, every quarter to understand how we can do that and where we can identify maybe certain where the gaps might be and how to, in general, improve your overall feel for how you're using Dataserv and how we can help improve and enhance, that experience itself.
I think it's important also to mention that analytics is going to give you the trends and the information of patterns within your organization. The dashboard is intended to be real-time work. So if you're thinking about your month end and thinking about accruals, that's not really your trend information. You want to know what's out there right now. So Tony, can you share how they can find out information for accruals?
Yes, and we've got a search built into the dashboard here that identifies all of those invoices that are outstanding for that month to help you close your month end. And from here we have a number of fields that are available. You could have control over how the look and feel for these fields, the order of them, and then from here what you can do is you can select them all and export these to Excel with all the coding information as well to help you complete that month end accrual process.
Great.
Yeah, I mean, really what we're doing is it helps provide predictability, right?
Mm-hmm. Why don't we move on to the PO side, Tony?
Yes. Thanks, Jamie. Yes, let's do that. So on the PO side of things, what we have is we're getting your PO and receipt data daily, right? You issue a PO to your vendor who then in return provides goods or a service to you, at which point it's received. And meanwhile, the invoice is coming in the Dataserv and going through the process that I mentioned before. Remember, we're integrating with your system. We don't have to, but we find that there's a lot of advantages with that when we get your PO and receipt data because we can incorporate that pre-ERP 2, 3, and even a 4-way match, right? So what we're doing there is we're taking that invoice header and line level detail, running it through our AutoVouch program, and matching that PO and receipt data to the invoice data using a series of rules as well as tolerances, to meet your specific matching needs and to keep those invoices, moving along. Anything that was, auto-vouched successfully will go right back into your ERP and be prepped for payment from there. And anything that wasn't, AP can either manage those exceptions or we can leverage PO data to put those invoices in front of those, maybe the buyer if there was a price discrepancy or someone in a warehouse if there was a quantity discrepancy or something like that. So the most important thing is that we're keeping those invoices moving along, and AP always has that visibility into where those invoices are. So I'm going to click on another tile here to get into our invoices pending a match, just to show you how that works exactly from the user experience side of things, right? I mean, there's a lot of AI driving what's going on here behind the scenes, and it's important to speak to that just so that you have some information or some knowledge on how that works, because the user experience basically sits on top of that automation, right? Especially when you're promoting an exception-based process. So let me open up one of these invoices here. So for the PO invoices, what we're going to notice is that at the bottom of our image pane, we have the line level detail, right? So if we're going to be matching at the line level against your PO and receipt data, having that line level detail is essential, right? And on the right-hand side, we have that header, invoice header level information as well. And also, by the way, it's important to mention that there's audit information so you can understand how a document came to be. You know, who updated a document, what did they modify, and when did they do it? All of that's important, right? We want to give you information to help understand how something got to be where it is right now. And also, we can provide audit information upon request via reports and things like that as well. What I'm going to do right now is I'm going to run the auto vouch program. This is not something that you have to do. This happens overnight, behind the scenes, hopefully before you're up in the morning. And what that's doing, like I said before, I showed you that diagram. We're taking that PO data, that receipt data, and that invoice line detail, and running it through our program here. And so whenever you log in the morning, you see something like this. Again, you would not do what I just did. That was merely a before and after step. And we can see here is that there were a couple invoices that matched successfully, and at which point this data would be ready to send over to your ERP so you can pay it. That's the idea, is that anything that goes downstream through Dataserv and into your ERP does so without any user intervention whatsoever. During testing, during training, you'll get a feel and a comfort level for it, right? I mean, we want you to be confident and comfortable with what is being put in front of you, right? You're going from a situation where maybe you're manual to a situation where you're more automated, and that can be a big step. Change management's a big portion of that, and we want to help you out with that as well. So when you're comfortable and confident with it, we'll go live, and you'll have these invoices and the metadata and the PO data and the receipt data flowing back into your ERPs for payments. So this one was matched successfully. If I take a look at that invoice data, I can see right here 10 and 40. And we have 2 lines in this invoice. We have 2 lines in the receipt data. It looks like it was an exact match. There were some invoices that did not match successfully. For example, this EMC invoice, and those route to those approvers, just like they did with the non-PO invoices. Okay, those people will get a single email once a day. They click on that link to log in. They're in Dataserv. They can see that there are non-PO invoices and PO invoices. What we're looking at here is a price discrepancy. And let's go ahead and take a look at what's going on there. So if we can leverage PO information, such as the buyer on a purchase order, to auto route matching exceptions, we want to take advantage of that. Maybe that's not right away, but eventually you want to see where you can take advantage of automation steps. If you can't, we understand, but we want to help you with your change management as well, and take into account your short and long-term visions of AP automation, so that we can put together a plan that makes sense for you. All right. So now if I look at this invoice, I can see that there were 2 lines that matched successfully. One of these lines did not. Notice there was an invoice for, it looks like $73 on this line, but in the PO and receipt data, it was for $65. So we would want to talk with you about how you want to move forward with this step. Do we want to allow someone to force a manual match here? If so, is there another approval required for that? Or do we want to force a change in your ERP, and then for us to inherit that updated PO and or receipt data to match, again, overnight or tomorrow morning? So there are a number of options there. We want to make sure that we're putting the right pieces in place to make sense with you and to limit the touches on the invoice side of things, right? Again, we're also going to try to promote best practices along the way.
Let's see how they can really analyze how things bounce out of the automated matching. What kind of issues are experienced?
Yeah, absolutely. So within analytics, which we just touched on a moment ago for the non-PO side of things, there's also several reports in here that are focused on the PO as well. So to get an understanding around where my exceptions are, what is my exception rate? over time? Is that changing? What is it by, maybe there are certain problem vendors. Well, let's take a look at this, and we can see that over the last 360 days, 45% of our exceptions are related to price discrepancies. Well, let's hone in on that a little bit. When I hone in on that, I can see that there are, when I get down to the metadata itself, I can see who the problem vendors are. Which vendors are exposed to a majority of these issues. So maybe this can help with your either negotiations or your purchasing process to understand, why aren't we getting the right prices on these invoices? Is this for raw material? What is this exactly? So there's a lot that we can do to help help out with that in terms of normalizing and optimizing that data. Pulling certain data, unnecessary characters out that aren't important to the process, or updating based upon unit of measurement. We want to put that invoice data in a position for matching, and it does so in the best and highest accuracy ways when we can optimize that, right? It needs to be in the same convention as your PO and receipt data from your ERP. So this just gives you insight into that, and to help you understand more about what those exceptions are, right? That exception-based process is important, and understanding how to minimize that to allow you to grow over time without adding additional headcount is very helpful.
Yeah. Well, I think we covered both the PO and the non-PO process. Like we talked about at the beginning, we can actually demo this system for days as far as the capabilities that it has. So I think we're at a good point to take some questions. Maybe we can shed some light on what else the software can do.
Well, that sounds great, Jamie and Tony. We are moving into the Q&A portion of today's demonstration. If you haven't already asked your question, or if you think of any more questions for Jamie or Tony, please type them into the chat box and hit send to submit them to me. We will answer as many questions as time will allow. Our first question is from Tim. Tim wants to know, what ERPs does this solution work with?
Glad you asked that. I'll take that one, Tony. We actually are ERP agnostic, much like the statement matching before us. We work with all different ERPs. Haven't found an ERP that we can't work with, and there are multiple integration points that you can take advantage of. The more we can integrate with master data and integrate with your system, the better value you get out of the system.
Another question.
We've got multiple clients that have multiple ERPs as well. So even if it's not, doesn't have to be a single ERP or anything.
Yes, good point.
Another question from an attendee. Beth wants to know, does Dataserv have its own supplier portal?
You want to take that, Tony?
Yes. We didn't really touch on it too much today, or maybe not at all, but we do have a vendor portal that our clients can interact with to help onboard new vendors, as well as give their vendors access to where invoices are within the process. It's like a Dataserv Lite, more or less. I mean, there's a lot of terms and extra fields that, we want to, trim down and simplify for the vendors so that they can see, just what you want them to see. We would talk with you about what that is, and we've got some good ideas on about 95% of that.
And just to add to that, I think sometimes the term supplier portal can get confusing about what that means exactly. We do not have a interface where vendors are required to submit invoices in a certain format, and we don't force that upon your vendors, but we do provide them the visibility for when they can expect payment in our system.
Robin writes in, she wants to know, do you integrate with electronic invoicing networks?
Yes. And if by networks you mean like just getting that invoice data itself, yes, there are, we do. Absolutely. I mean, in fact, actually a lot of what you even see in the demo itself is invoice data that was actually from a simple file, and we just transpose it onto an invoice image, right? I mean, there's a lot of EDI out there and things like that that we can take and apply to a digital template for users to interact with. It's harder to interact with data. It's easier when there's some familiarity involved with an invoice image.
And so what that does is really gives a single stream, a single process for your invoices, no matter how they come to you.
Paula,
and it's quick too.
Paula writes in, she wants to know, how would the system handle invoices that have more than one purchase order?
Well,
absolutely, we've got a lot of clients.
That's a common thing that we see, and our system does have the capability to capture the PO number at the line level, and that way we can apply automated matching to multiple purchase orders when you have one invoice. We do that today for several of our clients.
Susan writes in, missing PO numbers is a common cause of exceptions in our operation. What tools do you have to automate the resolution of those? In other words, to get the data from the suppliers?
Wow, I'd love to just ask you more questions about this. You know, why aren't your vendors putting the purchase orders on your invoices? Don't they want to get paid? The first step would be understanding why they're not doing it and trying to get them to do it, right? I mean, they're expected to provide this level of detail for you. For some of our clients, what we've done is actually we can auto-apply a PO number to an invoice based upon other information, but I hold back on that because without knowing more about this particular situation, I think you want the vendors to clean that up. You want to attack these things at the source, as farthest upstream, so downstream you can benefit from it. And so if you get those vendors to make those changes, then you can then benefit from it, right, using automation.
Another question from an attendee. Beth wants to know, do you have mobile access to your analytics?
Today we have mobile approval, but the analytics piece that's coming, but it is not mobile ready yet today. However, the analytics dashboards can be sent out through email and sent out as PDF. So if you were to receive that in your email inbox, you would be able to view that mobilely if you're trying to distribute that.
What have you seen happening with mobile approvals, Jamie, during the course of the pandemic and the work from home mandates?
More use of it. Some of our clients, we have some newer clients this year that are just a perfect fit for applying automated coding to those invoices and getting them to the right person to approve. Simple and easy. The usage has gone up for sure.
Deanna wants to know, how does the system handle handwritten invoices? My goodness, we still have paper and we still have some of them handwritten, for crying out loud. What do you do about those?
We like to tell a story. We've even seen invoices come in on a napkin. Well, remember, OCR does not really read handwriting. It's not magical. But the process that we put through these invoices through in our digital mailroom uses a combination of technology and human validation. So when we encounter things like that, we typically are still able to capture all of the information off of it. And something else to think about, I think sometimes people are thinking about invoices that have information written on it because AP wrote it on there. But when you're looking at a solution like this, you would be thinking of your invoices being captured up front. So the mail isn't going to AP anymore or to the requesters that purchased it. It's coming up for upfront capture. And in those cases, there would not be handwriting on the documents.
We have a 2-for-1 here. Beth writes in, wants to know how long does it take to implement this solution. And Fran writes in and wants to know what's involved in implementing this solution. So walk us through the process.
Tony, you want to take that one?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. We can go fast. It's usually it's on our client side that things you typically get held up. I think we went live with one of our clients in 82 days recently, fully integrated and fully automated as well. So there's a process where we would kick off, and then we would want to meet with your business team and talk about what we call our option selection to get the business requirements, understanding your business, understanding your shortcomings, understanding what your short and long-term vision is for AP, and seeing where we can fit in and how we can help you with that. Change management's a big portion of it, and through those conversations, we can help iron out some of those wrinkles that you may not know exist within your vision, and that usually takes between 90 and 120 days. But
I want to interject there, Tony, that we've also got the quick start, which we give to you right away before the option selection, which is our standard platform that's going to give you best practices. Some of our clients, we really encourage them to use that to start getting some visibility into their system. And then over time, we improve the process by applying tailoring, which is specific business requirements that your organization has.
Another question from an attendee. This time, Paula wants to know, would all POs that are not in the same metric as an invoice be considered for matching approval, or does the system have the capability to convert from one metric to another for matching?
Great question. Absolutely. What we want to do is we want to put yes, we want to absolutely put that invoice detail in the same convention as the purchase order, right? If you have if it's your purchase order, you have each as your unit of metric, and then on your invoice you have a box. Well, what does a box mean? Well, we can incorporate a matrix to help identify how that is, maybe on a vendor by vendor or location by location basis, or some other sort of means. But that's what we do for some of our clients. We can also do some things with the quantity and the prices. As you know, sometimes those aren't the same on the invoice as they were in the purchase order. So we want to optimize that data wherever we can.
Yeah, and that question is great because we do have, we call it kind of our toolbox. We have several things like that we can implement after we've started AutoVouch with you. So we can take a look and see, using analytics, what isn't matching automatically. Okay, well, we can identify there's certain vendors where their invoices are just off from the PO. So let's start applying some rules to correct that over time and really drive down those exceptions.
Mario writes in, he wants to know what benchmarks can you share for the percentage of invoices that you're able to post straight through without operator intervention?
So this is, again, depends. This depends very widely based on the business industry you're in, the percentage of purchase orders that your company utilizes, the receiving process that your organization has. What we try to focus on is starting you somewhere with our standard matching process. We typically see 40 to 50% match rate right out of the gate. But then we use our analytics to identify where things are not, where they could be working better. And we have seen clients that have received a 80%, 90% match rate by making adjustments to continuously improve that process.
Rich writes in, he says, you mentioned artificial intelligence. How are you currently using AI specifically to help drive automation?
Right. So, I mean, for example, I mean, in terms of identifying information off of invoices, right? First of all, it all starts with the quality of the data that's captured up front. So we're continuing to use AI to identify where, how information might appear on an invoice, how invoice date might appear, where vendor information, remit addresses, that type of stuff exists, as well as within the auto matching portion, right? We have a series of matching rules that incorporates that AI to take into account what we have from an invoice, the line level, compared to the PO and receipt data, and to match it using sets of rules, as well as learning from those rules to help give you information and feedback to understand more about where those exceptions are to drive the change where necessary.
Jesse writes in, says, given the situation with the pandemic, sending invoices to a third party for entry seems like it can be very helpful. Have you seen a spike in the volume of organizations interested in outsourcing?
Most definitely. This business that we are in is ripe for helping in a situation like this, because many of the people we talk to are no longer able to go in the office and get the mail, open the mail. Well, we can provide that service by creating a P.O. box, collecting that, and scanning that. And like I mentioned at the beginning of the call, it's very simple just to redirect your email address. You've probably already got one. Just instead of you dealing with that, it can route away. To us, and then it's automated. Even if you don't have the IT integration built, there's value into having this automated workflow and really giving you that visibility.
Donna is dying to know, how does your system handle partial payments toward purchase orders where the entire order doesn't ship at the same time?
Yeah, that happens pretty often. A lot of our clients have that. In order for us to match properly, we want to understand your different PO types and how we can put those rules in place to put you in the best position to automate, right? So if they say that if you purchase 10 of something and only 5 was delivered and received, and you were invoiced for 5, well, I mean, usually you're invoiced based upon what you've received or what they ship at that time. So we're invoicing 5 against 5, and really there's still 5 outstanding somewhere. We're waiting to receive those. So we just can take that into account within the matching rules. Understand that partials are part of the process, and we totally get it. And we have that all baked into the AutoVouch program.
One last question from James. He says, we do not have a centralized procurement function or any formal procurement system. How could Dataserv assist us with getting to a centralized procurement to pay workflow?
I think we would ask some additional questions there to answer that correctly, but what our system is going to do, it doesn't really matter. We're able to process things without the purchase order as well. That's kind of what Tony demonstrated up front. And we also have we didn't get a chance to demo it, but it is on our infographic there from the beginning. We have a purchase order or a purchase requisition process that we can help facilitate the upfront capture of what's being purchased, the coding behind it, and the approval. And then when that invoice comes in, we can do that process on the back end. So even if you don't have an official PO system, we can assist with doing that upfront approval and spend visibility.
Jamie,
holding that up there.
Jamie, how can people get a hold of you?
I think we're going to go ahead and direct you to our website, dataserv.com, dataserv.com.
And that is all the time that we have for this demonstration. Tony, Jamie, thank you so much for an excellent presentation, and thank you all for all of your questions.